Welcome to the Soul Mirror. I'm your host, Shreya. Healing doesn't always begin with fixing, it begins with remembering. And today's conversation is about self love not as a concept, but as a courageous practice that restores sovereignty, clarity, and inner authority. Gabriela Popescu invites us into the soul path, where healing becomes embodied, purposeful, and deeply transformative. So, welcome, Gabriela. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you so much, Shreya. I'm excited to be here.
And Gabriela, your work speaks to moving from self betrayal to wholeness. How does self betrayal usually show up in high achieving adults?
Shows up as many things. It shows up as prioritizing others' well being before we prioritize ourselves. It shows up through being busyness, and choosing to focus on tasks that don't really fulfill us, don't fill out our souls. And it shows up as really persecuting ourselves and negative self-talk, um, and a lot of self-judgment.
That's really wonderful. And why do the most capable people often struggle the most with self trust?
It all stems from a core wound of not being enough, right? When we are very young, between ages of 0 and 7, we develop our world view, and how we interpret the world during that time. We carry that programming through our lifetime. And if we don't stop to analyze that and dissect those beliefs and really question ourselves, are we doing this because someone told us we need to do it? That self worth equals love? And or is it because we were told that if we don't produce or if we don't do things, then we are not worthy? So that's primarily what happens there.
Yes. And I think the paradox is really striking, like strength on the outside, but disconnection within. And
Absolutely.
yes, and also describe self love as a pathway and not a feeling. What does self love actually look like in daily choices?
Mm. It looks like putting on your oxygen mask first, right? That whenever you're flying, right, the stewardess goes through the safety training. It applies in our day to day. So choosing to fill our cup first before we go out into the world and help others is pivotal. So if that could look like taking 20 minutes to yourself in the morning with your cup of tea or coffee or warm water, whatever that looks like, and just taking a moment to set an intention for the day, to ground and to give gratitude for yourself, to yourself, for all the amazing things that you've created the day before, today, for giving gratitude to the earth for supporting you, for giving gratitude to your body for helping you achieve all the things that you want to achieve.
Yes, that's really wonderful the way you explained it. And also, how do people confuse self love with comfort or avoidance?
Well, I think we are taught, culturally or in our families, to that self-love is selfish. And I think that is completely wrong. And that's something that we need to unlearn, and we choose to prioritize ourselves every day. And I think that everything that we do in life is a choice, right? So really looking at, are we doing this because other people told us to do it, or are we doing it for ourselves truly? And there's nothing wrong with comfort. There's absolutely nothing wrong with comfort. There's I think there's also a scarcity mindset out there that if we take a moment to rest, to reset, to just be present, we are being lazy. And that's a complete misconception. And, with the constant technology availability, like we have instant messaging, all of the companies out there, they have their own internal Slack or way of communication. And there's that desire to respond and to be available. And that's great. However, is that really necessary, right? Like questioning, do we need to be available 24/7, or is it okay to set some boundaries and say, hey, between hours of 8 and 5, I'll be available. I will take a break here where I won't be available, and like making that normal and acceptable and not uh, expanding our availability past the working hours. I think that's a real struggle right now in the world.
Yes. I think that distinction challenges the softer narratives and calls for real responsibility. And
Absolutely.
and the soul path blends spiritual connection with grounded strategy. Why is embodiment essential for lasting healing?
Because if we could say that we're going to do all the beautiful things of that require us to be at 100%. And if we're not taking action, then it's just words, right? So transformation and change requires taking the action to do those things and to be consistent.
Yes, true. And also, what happens when healing stays only in the mind or in belief system?
Well, the physical body is a very complex system. And if we have trauma, it doesn't have to be a big trauma, but little traumas, micro traumas that compound and they do not get released from the emotional body or the physical body, then that trickles up, right? There is
Mm.
a trickle up and trickle down effect. You have the spiritual body, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And there's a lot of correlation and there's a symbiosis between all of them. And so if one body is aligned, but the other ones are out of balance, that creates disharmony, and that's where issues come up, health issues, emotional issues.
So it's really refreshing to hear that healing framed as something so lived and not just understood. And also, sovereignty is central to your work. How does
Mhm.
reclaiming sovereignty changes someone's relationship with purpose and wealth?
Well, I think we're depending on how you grow up, right? And what experiences you've had, you may choose to create early on limiting beliefs around the fact that you are disempowered and that what's happening to you, it's happening because of the outside world or the external world, when in reality we have 100% control and power over what we create. So sovereignty is extremely important because as a society we tend to give our power away, to the government, to our employer. And that's that's a lack of sovereignty, because we are responsible for what we create in every way.
Yes. And also, can alignment actually create more abundance, or does it demand sacrifice first?
I don't know if sacrifice is the right word. I would say that uh, change requires willingness. So the first step was taking responsibility for what you've created in your life, and then step by step taking action to address that, to ratify it, to change it. And that's where true transformation and healing happens.
Yeah. I think that question sits right at the age of fear and possibility for many listeners. And also, control often masquerades as discipline in high achievers. How do you help people release control without collapsing into chaos?
That's a great question. Well, again, it goes back to having the willingness to look at all the ways that you've been holding on to tightly. And it goes back to trusting yourself, to trust the universe, and to build that spiritual connection, to know that things are happening for you, not to you, and that everything is a lesson. So looking at what is the lesson in your experience. And I don't know if your listeners believe in reincarnation or soul contracts, but I believe that we all have soul contract coming into this world, and we have a predestined way of learning certain lessons, and some lessons need to be harder so that we get it, and so that we uh, break the patterns that we created to level up to the next level of healing.
Yeah, I think this challenges the belief that pressure is the only path to excellence. And I think many of us has believed. Uh, and also many listeners are navigating grief for the life they thought they would have. So how does grief fit into healing and embodiment?
Well, acknowledging it is step one, and you know, allowing for the grief to pass through your body, because I think a lot of people suppress it because we are taught to behave, to suppress our emotions, to not really feel that darkness or that sadness. And it needs to be felt, right? A lot of people avoid feeling it, and so they numb, or with food, shopping, alcohol, etc., you name it, avoiding to really deal with it. If we deal with the difficult emotions, then we could move out of them quicker. So,
Yeah. And also, like, what happens when grief is honored rather than just rushed?
it's a beautiful process. You are able to remember the person, right? Remember the person, remember the lesson, and no longer be affected or triggered by it. There's remembrance, and then you could easily move in to your next stage in life, whatever that may be.
Yeah. And I think it validates grief as wisdom and not as weakness. And also for leaders and entrepreneurs, how does like how does embodied self-love change the way they hold power?
That's a beautiful question. Well, it changes everything, because if you come from a place of wholeness, of embodiment, you show up differently. You show up as your best self, as the highest version of you. And that benefits not only you, but your community and your business, because that that's what people are looking for: authenticity, and coming from a place of love and connection.
Yeah. And also what shifts when leadership comes from presence rather than performance?
Yes, when you come from a place of presence, you're authentic, right? You connect with people in a completely different way. Present performance is forced, right? You are wearing a mask. You're not really showing up as your the fullest version of you, and that people could see that it's very transparent. And if they don't see it on a conscious level, on an unconscious level, they could definitely pick up on it, and that minimizes the trust and the ability to connect to them in a meaningful way.
Yeah. And also, many people say that they want alignment but fear losing relationships or status. So, what does the soul path reveal about belonging versus authenticity?
Okay. So the soul path doesn't proclaim anything other than sovereignty and connection. And so it's quite, there's the only way forward is as showing up as your true self and an embodied version of you.
Yeah, yeah, that's so beautiful. And also, for someone in chaos right now, disconnected from themselves, what is the first step back onto the soul path?
Well, it's easy on the physical body. It just takes, grounding, and it doesn't need to be bare feet on the earth. The power of intention is everything. So just visualizing two cords coming out of your feet, connecting to the earth, and really practicing some deep breathing, for a couple minutes. That's the easiest way. And then while they're doing that, just visualizing all the negativity or heightened emotion that they're experiencing and just releasing it into the earth. Then on the emotional side, um, just again doing the breath work. And then if there's a reoccurring thought that comes into their mind, just writing it down and really getting curious, why this is coming up, and then reflecting, is this my belief, is it someone else's belief? And then on the spiritual body, just making sure that you the person takes a couple minutes to just be in stillness and really connect with their spirit. And if spirit is not their thing, connect with nature and connect with a tree, connect with a flower, connect with an animal, and really see the beauty and appreciate it. And that will absolutely have a calming effect.
I truly agree. And also, how does that single step begin to restore harmony?
It gives you the perspective that there's a bigger world out there than you, and that we are also interconnected. Every, everyone is a reflection of ourselves, right? So just knowing that we have all the resources within us, and that abundance is equally abundant and available to us, and tapping into that gratitude practice, that's one of the easiest ways to bring balance and harmony into someone's energy right away.
Yeah, I think there is hope in knowing clarity doesn't come before action, it just follows it. And this is a wonderful conversation with you, Gabriela. Thank you for this deeply grounding conversation. And I think you reminded us that healing begins with remembering and that self love is brave, embodied practice. And we are grateful for your wisdom, your presence, and for guiding us back to our inner authority through the soul path. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
They could go to my phoenixmedicine.me website, and they could find my book. It's been a bestseller in 3 categories. And there, I also have the Soul Check-in, which is easily, it's a quick reset, and it's a way for people to connect. That's my freebie. So they could also get that as well.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find it easily and get in touch with you and know more from you because you're truly, truly an amazing person. And for my listeners, if something in this conversation resonated, let it be an invitation. Self love is not indulgence, it is devotion. Choose sovereignty over self betrayal, embodiment over avoidance, and trust that your soul already knows the way. The path forward begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. And do not forget to hit the follow button, subscribe, and also feel free to share your thoughts because your ears deserve premium content. Thank you.